The fastest road racer in NASCAR uses a technique that the entire field abandoned 30 years ago. Now, with Shane Van Gisbergen winning 6 of the last 7 road course races, the whispers in the garage are no longer about how to beat him. They are about whether the rulebook itself should be rewritten to stop him. The numbers explain why. Shane Van Gisbergen has now won 8 career road and street course races in just 16 starts, a 50% win rate that places him 1 victory behind Jeff Gordon for the all-time lead on the twisty tracks. Van Gisbergen now has a 50% win rate in his Cup Series starts on road and street courses, winning 8 out of 16. Gordon, the all-time road course king, won 9 out of 47. The strangest part of the story is this. Every rival team can see exactly what he does and still cannot do it themselves. To understand the advantage, you have to look at the footwell. Modern Cup drivers brake with their left foot. The next-gen car uses a sequential style transmission that does not really need a clutch for gear changes. So the left foot simply lives on the brake pedal at all times. Shane Van Gisbergen does not drive that way. He brakes with his right foot, and at the same moment he rolls that foot sideways to blip the throttle while his left foot works the clutch. The technique is called heel and toe, and it is as old as motorsport itself. This is not a new invention in stock car racing. The practice was once common when Cup stars such as Ricky Rudd, Bill Elliott, and Rusty Wallace worked road course magic with their feet, and later Marcos Ambrose used it to win twice at Watkins Glen. The practice is unheard of in this era of NASCAR, where drivers predominantly have used their left foot to brake for the past 3 decades since the introduction of transmissions that eliminated the need for the clutch while changing gears. In other words, Shane Van Gisbergen is using the old way. So what does the technique actually do? According to breakdowns from Jeff Burton and Dale Earnhardt Jr., there are 3 claimed benefits. The first is rear tire protection. By feathering the clutch on entry, the driver disconnects the engine drag from the rear wheels for a split second, which prevents driveline shock from loading the rear tires in the middle of a corner. Dale Earnhardt Jr. explained it this way on his podcast. He's right foot braking, and he's got his foot on the clutch, and so when he starts to feel the rear tires trying to get time, like the engine braking, trying to drag the rear tire or even induce wheel hop, he will modulate the clutch just slightly to dampen the load on the drivetrain. The second benefit is rotation, where the clutch helps the car pivot and turn into the corner. The third is throttle response, because heel and toe matches engine revs perfectly to the gear the driver is dropping into, so there is no lurch and no upset to the car. Shane Van Gisbergen himself has described the technique as completely ordinary. It's normal to me. I always right foot brake and heel toe. It's what I've grown up doing. I only started left foot braking last year in a Raleigh car. That casual confidence has done nothing to calm the rest of the garage, where driver after driver has tried the technique and failed. The list of failures is long and well documented. Joey Logano of Team Penske began the Watkins Glen weekend planning to brake with his right foot all weekend, then bailed out during practice. His teammate Austin Cindric is also known to have attempted the switch and even ran a Supercars wildcard in Adelaide last year, in part to practice the craft, and still could not bring it back. Even Ross Chastain, who shares the Trackhouse racing operation with Shane Van Gisbergen, gave up on it. "My feet are on the wrong pedals when I do it his way," Chastain said in the wake of Watkins Glen. "I've learned my way, and at 33, it's tough. I can do it intentionally for like a corner or 3, and then I get to the next corner the next lap and I go back to my way. It's just muscle memory." The 2-time champion Kyle Busch went so far as to test it in a production Camaro at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course and came away half a second slower than his normal style. "I know how to do it, and I can do it, but it's very clunky," Busch said. "I am not a smooth operator when it comes to having to do the heel toe." Kyle Larson, a driver who has won almost everything in the sport, was even more blunt. "You can't teach an old dog new tricks. There's 0 chance I can learn how to do that." The most interesting case of all is Denny Hamlin. Hamlin was actually taught to road race with right foot braking, and he won at Mexico City using it 20 years ago. Yet going back to it now is something he considers impossible, and he doubts younger drivers will pick it up either. "It's going to be really hard," he said on his podcast. "I just don't see anyone coming up the ranks that are volunteering to learn that style and stick with it." Here is the detail that turns this from a curiosity into a genuine competitive crisis. NASCAR runs an open data system called SMT, which means every team in the garage can study Shane Van Gisbergen's brake traces and throttle inputs in full detail. They can see precisely what he is doing. They simply cannot do it. With practice time restricted to an hour or less every weekend and open testing essentially banned, there is no realistic way to rebuild 15 years of muscle memory between a Friday practice session and a Sunday green flag. That is not a skill gap. That is a chasm. If you want technical breakdowns like this one, the kind the broadcast does not show you, make sure you subscribe before we continue, because the next part is where the story turns. Here is the twist that most coverage misses. Shane Van Gisbergen does not believe the footwork is the reason he wins. When Dale Earnhardt Jr. put the advantage to him directly, he all but dismissed it. "I don't think it is a big advantage. Of course I'm going to say that, but it's all I've known," he said. He then pointed to the differential as the real explanation. "I used to do it because you had to in a V8 supercar. Because they would have a locked diff and you'd have to run so much rear brake to make it turn, you could control the rear lock in the brake zone. Then as you got to the brake zone, the clutch would be out as you turned in and it would help the car to turn. But in this, you don't need to because the diff is open. So you don't really have rear locking because you can run so much more front brake bias. If the footwork is the visible trick, the invisible skill is tire management." After Sonoma in 2026, his rival said as much. "Shane is one of the greatest road racers in the world, and where he really shines is just tire conservation," said Chase Briscoe, who chased him to the final lap that day. J. Allmendinger described the same quality, saying Van Gisbergen keeps the tire underneath him without making it angry, and that he knows how to manage that better than anybody so far. "The rookie Connor Zilisch put it in plain terms. You never see him slipping tires," said Zilisch. "There's times where, like out of turn 6 into turn 7, everybody else is getting to wide open and he's not even getting to wide open. Just little things like that where he doesn't push the car beyond what it needs to be pushed." That dominance has revived an old NASCAR question about competitive parity. Historically, when one team or manufacturer figured something out, the rules tended to follow. From Hendrick truck arm suspension geometry in the early 2000s to the dominant number 48 car on intermediate tracks to Toyota winning too often. That history is why 3 theories are circulating in the garage about how NASCAR might respond, though it is important to be clear that these are garage speculation and not announced plans. The first theory is a spec pedal box with fixed spacing that would make heel and toe physically harder. The second is going full sequential and removing the clutch entirely on road courses, which would erase the rear tire protection trick. The third, described as the nuclear option, is changing the differential specification. An idea Shane Van Gisbergen himself effectively hinted at when he explained that the open diff makes the technique a bonus rather than a necessity. The reality is far more modest than the rumors. NASCAR issued its technical updates in November 2025, and they focused on 750 horsepower short tracks and A-post flaps. There was nothing about the pedal box, and no rule change targeting the technique has been announced. There is also a counter-argument that runs through the fan base. Many older fans actually want Shane Van Gisbergen to keep doing it, because right foot braking and heel and toe represent how stock cars used to be raced before the modern era, and legislating it away would feel like banning craftsmanship itself. That leaves 2 possible futures. In the first, the rulebook stays as it is, Shane Van Gisbergen keeps winning road courses at a high rate. And eventually a new generation of drivers grows up with the technique already baked in. In the second, the rules change, the advantage is restricted, and Shane Van Gisbergen adapts, something he has already begun by learning left foot braking in a rally car last year. The driver most likely to lead that new generation is 19-year-old Connor Zilisch, who has already beaten Shane Van Gisbergen head-to-head in the O'Reilly Series, though he is yet to do so in the Cup car, and who scored a career-best 7th-place finish at Sonoma in 2026. Whatever happens, one fact remains. The driver from Auckland has dragged a forgotten art back into the spotlight of America's biggest racing series and has forced NASCAR to look hard at its own rulebook. So here is the question worth answering. Should NASCAR change the rules to level the field or leave it alone and let talent win out? Type level it if you believe they should regulate it. Type let him cook if you believe Shane Van Gisbergen should be free to keep doing what he does.